right, welcome to Permission Granted podcast. I'm Kasia, and I'm here with my really amazing good friend Eva Pons.
Hey guys, welcome back.
And we're so excited. We're going to dive into the topic of motherhood today because it's May, and May is often, in our culture anyway, here celebrates Mother's Day. And I know in Europe, many countries also celebrate it throughout the month of May. So we thought, what a perfect opportunity to dive in.
And it's a beautiful thing that moms are celebrated. And we started talking off air about this particular topic and the essence of being a mom when it comes to our children. And a lot of the times Mother's Day is celebrated more around the era of like the smaller children, the babies, the toddlers, the kids that are in school. But oftentimes, like with our grown children, we both have grown children that are teenagers. My youngest just turned 20 and my oldest is 26. And we often, we got into this conversation about how society wants to take our kids, rush them up to grow. And when they hit like that certain point, like I guess once they're 18 and they're out of high school and ready to go to college, like it's almost like their ticket to exit the home. And they're supposed to be full-fledged adults, and we are supposed to just throw them out of the, like, like the moms do with the birds, and they kick them out of the nest and force them to be like these rapid grown-up adults. And they're scared as shit.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we were having this conversation, like, we need to get that out of our heads. Like, we need to start putting the pressure on our children to feel like they have to hurry up, grow up, and then get out. Right?
Yeah, I don't agree with that at all.
So harsh and so unrealistic. Like, we were having this conversation. I'm like, if it were up to me, my kids would live with me and their spouses and grandkids for like infinity and beyond, because I feel like, and we all know, like as a parent, especially as a mom, your job never ends.
Yeah.
You will have grown ass kids. You will still be a mom.
Totally.
And you will still be mothering until the day that you have your last breath and you are not mothering anymore. And I kind of feel like that's a lot of pressure that these kids are like really like underdeveloping. Like, I guess this is where a lot of their anxieties and their fears and their not being able to make these choices, because I think our kids, our generation of kids, are being put under so many pressures to make so many decisions where I don't think we were, right, Kasia? Were we ever felt like we were under such pressure?
I wasn't, like the way I grew up and the culture where I come from Poland, a lot of generations do live together, so it's not unusual to have grandparents, parents, kids living together, even great grandkids, in whether it's, a big home with sort of many different spaces or homesteads, that type of thing. Maybe not in the cities so much, but where I grew up in the country. So I never, yeah. And when, even after moving to Canada, we lived in the city, but I never felt that pressure from my mom to, okay, you got to like get your shit together and get out. So I never put that pressure on my kids. But I can tell you a lot of, now that my kids are, my son's graduated now, he's 18 and my daughter's 17, and some of their friends are definitely experiencing exactly this thing. And it breaks my heart because at 18, unless you know for a fact, okay, I want to be XYZ as a career, and you're, let's say it's like accountant or veterinarian or something, and you go to the school and you have your whatever paid for, your loans and all, or you think, hopefully you get a scholarship or something, and you can get that education and start up a vet practice and be set up. That's one thing. But a lot of these kids don't know.
No.
And my daughter's in that boat. She's like, they have to take this class called careers from grade 9 all the way through grade 12. And she's like, I feel so much pressure. Everybody's like, what do you want to be? What do you want to be? She's like, I don't know. I want to try a ton of things and I want to find it, but I don't know. Right. So
that's the point. I feel like we are robbing our kids the opportunity to explore life for what it really is, to really saturate yourself in what you're passionate about and what you feel you are called here to do. And I think a lot of times too, these kids feel like there's just too many things to choose from.
Yeah. And the truth is, there are jobs today, like a professional video gamer, that 15, 20 years ago was not a thing.
Not a thing.
right? So who knows what's going to appear in terms of a job or a career 10, 20, 50, 30 years from now that our kids will be running into or training into that we don't even have an idea about.
Even the onset and the super massive explosion of being an entrepreneur was not anything that we even had a vision to think we would be having the right to exercise to do something like that. And I feel like that's where a lot of our education at the middle school, high school level are skipping the beat to bring this to the forefront, to give our kids the opportunity to know that there's also another way that you can take what you're passionate about and create a space and a name for yourself without having to feel the pressure of that it has to come with other accolades attached to it.
Exactly. I like to follow Gary Vaynerchuk. He's an entrepreneur and probably world famous, and not everybody likes him. He's not everybody's cup of tea. He wasn't mine for a long time because he just felt like someone who just like hustle, work 24/7, get where you're going. But the more I've been listening to him recently, he's really like adamantly against college right out of high school.
Yes.
Because he says you should just try all the things. You're young. Now's the time to take the risks. And I don't mean like stupid risks, but if you want to be an entrepreneur, you want to try out that idea, or you want to go travel for a year when the world opens up again, like go do those things, because you can always go to college, 5 years from now and still do the other things.
Yeah.
So I think there's this huge paradigm shift, and it's like a big slug. It's moving very slowly, at least through the education system, that gone are the days where you go into one career and you stay there until you retire. I mean, maybe for some people, like if you really know you're going to be a surgeon or whatever, go for it.
Absolutely.
My kids never showed that propensity, right? They just they want to explore.
My youngest is into music, and he's at this point that he was in college. He decided to switch out to go to one that's more specifically geared for like the music entertainment production side of it. And even the job that he was holding part-time, he was working at a bank. And he's like, Mom, he goes, the job is great and it's an awesome opportunity, but I don't feel connected to this job. I feel like I need to work in something that is music oriented. And he went and sourced out all the places that he can work and was able to land a few interviews, got himself the job. And he works in a music store selling like guitars and selling instruments and things that come with that, and like the audiovisual equipment that comes with music production. And it's like a 360. This is like a totally different child and what he looked and acted like when he was working at the bank, where he had to be in a suit, like he called it a monkey suit. He's like, Mom, this is not me. He goes, I feel like I'm wearing somebody else's skin. He goes, this is just like, he goes, and it's a great job. He goes, for someone that wants to do that. He goes, that's not for me. So he was wise enough to pick up on that and able to know that he had options and resources and choices to switch it into something that he wanted to do. And I kind of feel like our kids feel like they have to stick with something out of obligation to make us parents happy.
And I think your kids, my kids, are blessed enough that they hear, live your own life. They hear that out of my mouth. I know your sons hear it out of your mouth, right? I have my own dreams that I'm gonna pursue myself. I'm not gonna put them on anyone else. I can't. And so I don't put them on my kids. And I don't want my kids to try and live up to anything that I might have for them. Obviously, like, I want my kids to be kind people. I want them to be contributing members. Like if they have a way to serve the world, I want that. But I'm not going to tell them you must serve the world in this way.
Yeah. Like we want you to be the type of human beings that come here with such an intentional, beautiful purpose to do the many things and not be that asshole.
Exactly. Totally. Exactly.
Like, don't be that asshole that everyone else is talking about, because then that's when, like, that's not why you're here. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you use your gifts for the better, not for the worse.
My son is pursuing acting, professional acting. And he's starting out in the theater, and then he's kind of known around our little town here already in a few circles. And that's the main conversation we have with him. It's like, at some point you're going to probably have a name, whether, whether you're like A-listed or whatever that's called. It doesn't matter how big you get or don't get, but you're going to be an influencer, right?
Mhm.
To a group of people. It's like, you got to know who you are and what you stand for, so that your life speaks a message to these people. You don't have to like have charities and foundations unless that's your thing.
Mhm.
But how are you going to be that voice for good in the world? Like, that's a conversation. And he's like, he goes, Mom, all my teachers said that to me, like all my friends, like everybody's like, when you're famous, you have to be a nice person or we're gonna kick your ass,
And it's the truth. Like, you have to be very intentional. Like, how are you going to be a change maker
Mhm.
in such a positive way that you're leaving your imprint
Exactly.
in the world, globally, in your society, in your own backyard, in your community, to know that they can name you by the difference that you made?
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, that's all really, like, we are all here to be of service in some capacity. Some are larger than others, and that's great. But it's to always make something better, to be
Yeah.
the change makers of something so positive and so good that at any scale, whether it's small or large, you are making an impact and you are leaving behind a legacy of that impact.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like today, a lot of our kids are just set up so much to fail because there's so much pressure
Yeah.
in having to get it all perfect from like the running of the gate once they're done with high school. Like, the minute you get that diploma in your hand and they walk across the stage, like, you already have to have a plan of action. And some of these kids just don't know, because I think we haven't given them the time and the room for them to even explore who they even are as a person, let alone what they're going to do as a job.
So how would you, like, if we were to, I mean, because this is how my kids have grown up, like, for all the ways that I've screwed them up, which I'm
Right?
sure there's many.
Lord
I feel
knows.
like this is like one of those conversations that my kids have grown up with, like, be your own self, follow your own dream, know what you want. But if someone, like other moms out there are just now sort of starting to think in those ways, or want to allow their kids to explore their world without feeling like they need to follow a certain path, how would you start having that conversation with kids? Like, what can we
I think the best way
offer?
is to just open up the conversation with really getting to know who your kid is, and really paying attention to those intentional things that they're doing, and just take a step back and see, is that lighting my kid up? Is my kid super jazzed doing what they're doing and pursuing what they're pursuing? Or are they doing it out of an expectation that we subconsciously put on them to live out?
Yeah.
Like, are we, and not intentionally putting that pressure on our children to be to be that person based on what we've been using our vocabulary and our language when we speak to them?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to go to college, you have to get this, like, like, were we having to like forcefully put our kids in that position, or did we allow them, or are we giving them the space to really connect to those things that light them up, and then pay attention to that? Is
Mm-hmm.
it lighting them up, or are they frustrated?
Yeah, I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And I would add to help them adult, but without all the pressures of, adulting fully right away. Like, for example, my son's graduated last year, and he's been, like I said, pursuing acting, and so he's been working sort of, I guess he calls it gig work, where it's not steady employment or whatever, but he lives at home, and we've included him in adulting in different ways, where he's taken on adult responsibilities in the home to
Mm-hmm.
contribute as an adult, but without like, okay, now you must pay rent, or now you must pay X, for your food or whatever. It's like, when he's financially set, that would be different. Or if he was just somebody sitting in the basement playing games all day doing nothing, right? That would be a whole different conversation we'd be having. But I would add, find out who your kid is, and how they would like to contribute to the home, so that they feel safe living at home still while they're
Yeah.
setting up whatever it is they're setting up for themselves as adults, rather
Mhm.
than putting pressure on them to perform in some way. And it's a fine line, and it's going to be very different with every kid, like every, whether, you know, they're young adults or they're a little bit older. I mean, I don't care if my kids live at home till they're 30, like I honestly don't.
Same.
But the responsibilities will change, but we'll cross that bridge when you get there. So being discerning, are you demanding your kids contribute in a certain way because you think they should?
Yeah.
Is it like a collaboration, a co-creation with them while they're exploring adulthood?
Yeah,
And
and that's like you said, a fine line. Like we also have to be careful how we approach our children with those intentions, because we don't want to come from a place of like, who made the law? Like when you turn 18, you have to start paying rent and be
yeah,
like you said, a full-fledged adult where everything's out of pocket. Like perfect example in our home, our boys worked, but when they started driving and wanted to have a vehicle to drive in, and they were working, we were like, okay, now you can help pay for some gas.
yeah,
And then when we got them the vehicles that they drove, we said, okay, now you have to start contributing to the car payment and the insurance.
yeah,
Contributing.
yeah.
We didn't say you're taking over the whole thing.
Hmm.
So they would give us a couple of $100 a month. $100 went to the insurance, $100 went to the car payment. But it was establishing the foundation of what it's like to be an adult and the responsibilities that come with those things that you want to exercise
Yeah,
as an adult.
yeah.
So it's giving them the behaviors that they need to set them up for success, and knowing that these are things that they're responsible for, and slowly acclimating them to that sense of responsibility without throwing the whole burden on them and saying, well, here's a $500 payment for your car. Here's a $1,200 payment for your insurance. Good luck with that.
Yeah.
And then expect them like, and that's a lot of burden for them to carry too, because now they have to work. But
Hmm.
are they gonna exercise to do more work versus being
Yeah,
in school for something that
yeah,
they really want to pursue? Because then that's a catch-22 with them too. And that's where a lot of the
yeah.
anxiety and the overwhelm comes. So we let them contribute in that fashion. When it came to their cell phones, we paid, like I still pay. Up until last year, our 25-year-old was still under our cell phone plan.
Oh, wow.
And he was married already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Draw
Because
the
we were
line.
like, we were like, it's a family plan. And I never wanted my kids to not have a way of communicating with us.
Hmm.
So that was also a selfish guarantee for us, that at any given moment, if they needed to outreach to us, they had the means to do so without saying, oh, well, mom, I didn't pay my cell phone bill, so it got cut off. Like we took that right off the table. But that, I
Hmm.
think, was the selfish thing that we did. But to each his own. And those are the things that I feel like you have to really work with your children and know that you are nurturing them to be the best human possible, but at a pace that feels safe
Hmm.
and it's comfortable, but still like adding the foundation of responsibility.
Absolutely. And what I have noticed, especially with my son, but with my daughter as well, she's in grade 11 this year, so she's got one more year of high school, is they embrace that responsibility and they thrive in it when they're
Mhm.
trusted that they can.
Exactly.
And they excel, and then they do more, and then I'm starting to notice like they will even do more without being asked,
Mhm.
whether it's chores or something else, or like, oh, I'll pick up groceries, for dinner, and like our son cooks once a week because like I work, my husband works, we've got sort of, I'm like, okay, you want an adult? Great. You're in charge of dinner once a week. And he's been like, he learned that he has to time it so
Nice.
that we can all eat at a reasonable hour. He has to like make sure things are out of the freezer. He has to go pick up the ingredients, right? So he's learning all this stuff. And that when he has his own place at some point, maybe if I let him one
Right.
day, I'm kidding. He'll have like it's a life skill, right? But it's like I don't always love what he makes, maybe, but does it matter? No, I'm gonna eat it, and I'm gonna cherish the fact that he put in this energy and this effort into
Yeah.
making dinner for us, right?
Yeah.
So you will be pleasantly surprised by your kids when you trust them that they can, and
Mhm.
allow them to co-create adulthood with you. I think they will embrace it. I imagine most kids will,
Yeah.
and they will do more than what they're asked Unless, yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's different personalities and things too, but I think for the most part, kids want to be trusted. Kids want to have the opportunity to show up.
And
like,
I think that
genuinely.
starts from when they're babies, like,
Mhm.
you know, like from the inception of when you're raising your child, giving them that freedom and that ability to really blossom into their own. And like you said, where they feel trusted.
Mhm.
And kids are always excited to help. But when we limit how they help, we also limit how they show up. So if a kid's excited to help you in the kitchen and you know they're going to make a mess, you know they're going to make a mess. But if you like limit how, well, you know, you can help mommy with this, but you can't do that because you make too much of a mess. Like you're already setting this kid up for epic failure, thinking like, oh my God, like I'm not able to do this because mom said I do that.
Yeah.
Like let them show up as they show up, messy and all.
And then they can learn how to clean it up. Like,
exactly. And then you implement everything else in that process and really build them up with that confidence, because that's where we start to dismantle their confidence, when we start limiting how they show up in the ways that they want to help.
Yeah.
Like pay attention to the ways that they do show up and they shine. And then other ways that, you know, that you still need to mold them in showing them, like, you know, where you have to take a little course correction in how they do certain things. But let them know, like they're so excited to want to be a part of something.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, so
And I
it
think
starts when
that,
they're younger and it carries through all the
yeah,
way.
I think that's definitely stays with them. And when there's that, like, I hesitate to use the word expectation, but I think there certain expectations make sense of, you know, we all share the family space. The expectation is that we all contribute
Absolutely.
appropriately. You know,
Yeah.
not obviously if you have a 5-year-old, it's going to be different than if you have a 12-year-old or an 18-year-old.
Mhm.
But the expectation of contribution is there, and communication about it is,
Yeah.
you can't just like have all these expectations but then never speak them or yell them or something, right? That communication has to be there. And I sometimes I like, you know, I would talk to my kids about everything. It was so important to me, and still is, that they understand why certain rules are there, why,
Absolutely.
you know, it's, I needed them to understand this is the rule, and I want it to make sense to you. If you have questions or if you want to discuss it, please let's, you know. And so I remember my son once telling me his friends were like, "Oh wow, are your parents really strict?" And he's like, "Oh no, my parents are great. Their rules make sense." And I was like,
Thank you, God.
right? Oh, all that, like feeling like a broken record.
And that's like, for us, it was funny because for our kids, we were like the cool kids on the block, like as far as parents. Like all my son's friends wanted to be here. Like they wanted us to epically like adopt them because their parents were total polar opposite of us.
Yeah.
And then we used to kid and say, like, the way we were raising our kids, we were like, these kids are gonna need therapy.
They still might.
But, you know, I'm like, they still might, but like, you know, that's another thing. Here's another key point. You might have to make that another podcast. You might have to stay for their therapy and their college. But anyway.
Yeah.
But I just like, all the kids just gravitated to how we were raising our boys, because we were very open and honest. And like you said, explain all the whys with all the things that we did and the reasons why we did it, because it was for their betterment.
Yeah.
Not because we were bored and we just wanted to make your life miserable. Like we've been there, we've done that. And because we've done that, we want to do it a different way so that you have a better outcome.
Exactly.
Like
there was never, like, the words "because I said so" never crossed my mouth because I hated being told that as a kid.
Yeah, no, like same.
Yeah.
Like we heard that as a kid all the time, and we're like, but what does that even mean? Like, what is your reason behind why I have to do something a certain thing? And kids are not dumb. Like they're willing to want to embrace why.
Yeah.
Not just a hard "because I said so." That makes no sense. If anything, you're creating or you are activating a dormant muscle of them being rebellious.
Yeah, defiant and rebellious. Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So if you want to remain that dormant and not activated, don't throw the "because I said so" card, because they will be like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna go do this.
You know, and you're spot on, Eva. I think that's one of the main reasons why our kids, like, I mean, they're, I don't know, that they do things, but they're not troublemakers, and they don't, they push boundaries, but not to the point where I'm worried about it.
Yeah, because they're trying to navigate life the way that they're finding it easier for them, and they're doing it in their own way, and we should respect that.
Yeah, they're not put into a box with a tight lid that they have to like try and break out of and rebel against.
Yeah, they're rattling the cage so that their voices are heard.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of times, often, society gears us to quickly want to shut and mute their voice down. Oh, because we're the parent and we said so.
Yeah.
A lot of the times our kids can teach us a thing or two.
Oh my gosh, so true.
So by giving them the opportunity to take the stand and have their little soapbox moment to really plead their case, a lot of times their justification is just as valid as our reason why not to.
And it'll expand your perspective. Like, there's been so many times my kids have blown my mind and changed completely how I think about something, because I made it my personal rule to be open to their opinion and their way of looking at the world. Because, like I said, I hated being shut down and made to feel inferior just because I was younger than someone.
Yeah. And that's the thing, like, just because we are older, we're not necessarily as wise. A lot of the times they can teach us a thing or two.
Yeah.
So permission granted to take that one step and really give them the opportunity to teach you something.
Yeah.
Just as much.
Permission granted to just get to know your kids, no matter how old they are, without like put your own agendas and your own opinions and your own like almost belief systems on the coffee table and leave them there. You can always pick them up later, but just like with an open heart and an open mind to be able to just have that conversation with your kids. Like, what makes them tick? What do they love? What are their dreams? And it might not be comfortable. Like, if your relationship with your kids is strained, I had that for years when my kids were younger, for reasons that I, may dive into one day if we ever have another episode about this, but I worked hard and openly to fix that relationship with them. And I feel like I did a good job. So nothing is unfixable. Nothing is so broken that it can be mended, but open heart, open mind.
Yeah. And it starts all with a conversation and the willingness to be willing to listen just as much as you partake in the conversation, so. Well, happy Mother's Day, mom out there. And mom, like, you don't have to necessarily have birthed a child, because Lord knows we mother all the things from our kids to our nieces and nephews, our fur babies. I mean, for shit's sake, we mother our own husbands. Hello.
Yes, that's a whole other episode.
Our significant others are like our other spirit children, So we're always mothering something. And women in general are nurturers no matter what, whether you have birthed your own children or not, whether you have children, you're surrounded by children, we nurture. Yeah. So celebrate yourself and that side that you have of always wanting to take care of someone else other than yourself. You are a mother, in fact, by true definition. Yeah. So we celebrate you.
Celebrate you. Happy Mother's Day. And we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.
Bye, guys.